All right, everyone, welcome back to the land of Chem. I'm your host and the author. My name is Jeffrey Drum. Thank you all so much for joining me again.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Now, today, an epic ancient Egypt documentary of colossal proportions, presenting research, chemical analysis data, and on-site footage revealing the function of the Giza Plateau iron vein wiring network. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. I think that is it for today's intro. So without further ado, let's get right to it.
To begin, the following article was first brought to my attention by my lovely wife Alexa several months ago, and again by fellow YouTuber Ahmed Adli, who sent me the Salim Hassan book reference that you will see later in this video. This monumentally significant topic will be presented in a sequential 3-part series here on the channel, starting today with the research of Dr. Robert Schoch and the new chemical analysis data that was processed in 2023 as a joint project between the Land of Chem and my colleagues at the Osireion project. Next, we will hit the Giza Plateau in this week's Sunday Site Visit, so we can investigate the features discussed today on site, up close in person. And the series will culminate in next week's research episode, revealing the function of this entire system. So now, let's dive into this article by Dr. Robert Schoch entitled Vitrification, Lichtenberg Patterns. The Giza Pyramids mark the location of ancient lightning strikes. And I will put a link to his website in the video description below if you want to read this entire thing. Now, today's episode will focus on presenting the evidence as proposed by Dr. Schoch and with a new set of chemical analysis data from samples taken by the Osireion project from these same areas of the Giza Plateau. This excerpt here summarizes the concepts from Schoch. First, I am convinced that the Giza Plateau is one location where plasma from this solar event touched ground level. Vitrification, the turning of stone to crude natural glass due to extreme temperatures, can be seen extensively there, and I have studied it for years. It was first brought to my attention by Mohammed Ibrahim and my good friend Yusuf Awian. It was during the summer of 2023 that Katie, Schoch's wife, noticed Lichtenberg patterns seeming to emerge from beneath both the Great Pyramid and also the Second Pyramid. Her observation was again electrifying to me, and I believe she is correct. Lichtenberg figures, first described scientifically in 1777 by George Lichtenberg, are dendritic, tree-like branching patterns that form when high voltage electrical discharge hits a relatively non-conducting surface, such as the limestone surface of the Giza Plateau. Like many electrical plasma phenomenon, Lichtenberg phenomena occur at scales spanning numerous orders of magnitude, from microscopic to planetary scale or even greater. On the Giza Plateau, Lichtenberg patterns are on the order of hundreds of meters in extent, as they appear to be emanating outward from under the Great Pyramid and the Second Pyramid. Such patterns on such a scale could be due to incredibly intense lightning strikes. However, typical atmospheric lightning that we witness in the present day is not strong enough to create such large and widespread scarring. Instead, I believe what we are observing is the result of a major solar outburst that drove plasma originating from our sun down through our atmosphere and magnetosphere to ground level, where it hit as huge, quote-unquote, lightning bolts. I hypothesized that the pyramids were built on and to mark the center or focal points of major plasma strikes, places, quote, where the sun touched the earth, so to speak, making this a sacred and revered site. These dendritic patterns currently appear as cracks or channels in the rock, the significance of which is easily overlooked. So here, we have the hypothesis from Schoch that the branch-like formations embedded in the bedrock around the Great and Central Pyramids are quote-unquote Lichtenberg figures, resulting from lightning strikes on the Giza Plateau that he believes may be connected to solar outbursts and major plasma strikes. Okay, next. He continues here with some discussion about the Lichtenberg pattern idea, and then mentions here, quote, I must comment briefly on the inventory stela. Discovered at Giza, the so-called inventory stela, alternatively known as the stela of Khufu's daughter, also records a lightning strike. Although the actual stela dates to the 7th or 6th century BCE, it purports to be a copy of an Old Kingdom text. According to the inventory stela, the Great Sphinx was already in existence during the reign of Khufu, the supposed builder of the Great Pyramid. Indeed, Khufu is credited with repairing the Sphinx after it was struck by lightning. And as you can see here, from the book entitled, quote, The Sphinx, by archaeologist and Egyptologist Selim Hassan, who also discovered and excavated the calcite crystal processing industrial settlement that was shown in the previous Sunday site visit. And I will read a few sections here from the inventory stela, which is of fine white limestone and bears the following inscription. He came to make a tour in order to see the thunderbolt, which stands in the place of the sycamore, so named because of the great sycamore, whose branches were struck when the Lord of heaven descended upon the place of Horem Akhet. If we could believe its inscriptions, we should have to credit Khufu with having repaired the Sphinx, apparently after it had been damaged by a thunderbolt. As a matter of fact, there may be a grain of truth in this story, for the tale of the Nemes headdress of the Sphinx is certainly missing, and it is not a part which, by reason of its shape and position, could be easily broken off, except by a direct blow from some heavy object delivered with terrific force. There is actually to be seen on the back of the Sphinx the scar of this breakage and the traces of the old mortar with which it was repaired. This scar measures about 4 meters, which accords with the measurements recorded on the stela. The extra damage may have easily occurred at the last destruction of the tail of Nemes. Therefore, it is perhaps likely that the Sphinx was struck by lightning, but there is not a particle of evidence to show that this accident happened in the reign of Khufu. By far, the most interesting part of the inscription is the account of the thunderstorm. It seems to bear the stamp of truth, and it would be interesting to know under which king this event actually took place. The mention of a great sycamore tree having been struck by lightning is also interesting, for there is a similar tree of immense age, still flourishing a little south of the Sphinx. So there is textual evidence from the Egyptian dynastic period of lightning strikes on and around the Giza Plateau, including one that may have struck the Sphinx and others that struck the sycamore trees. And this sycamore tree is an interesting side note, as these types of trees still exist in this exact same area of the Giza Plateau mentioned in this text, to the south of the Sphinx, within one of the most highly guarded areas of the entire plateau, the modern cemetery, adjacent to Gebel Gibli that I showed in our Sunday site visit expedition to the Wall of the Crow, which contains sycamore trees. More on this in a future episode. Now, continuing on with Schock's article here, and I will resume quoting. Giza is not the only site where lightning strikes are associated with megalithic structures. Another example that has been documented in the literature by a team led by C. Richard Bates is the site of the catalysis stones in Scotland, dating to over 5,900 years ago. And it just so happens that I discussed the catalysis stone circle site back in episode 116, Proof of Lightning at Ancient Stone Circles, when I explained how this stone circle, obelisk, and conduit system was designed to store the polarized electric field from subterranean telluric currents on the surface of the ground to attract lightning strikes and distribute that current along the Stone Avenue conduits, just as I explained in the recent episode 130, the Sphinx Avenue voltage transformer system. So now all of the pieces are coming together, but there's more from Dr. Schock's article here. And I will continue quoting, lightning versus hydrothermal mineralization. One critic of this hypothesis regarding the Lichtenberg figures and solar flares has suggested that we are looking at intrusive iron-rich hydrothermal deposits, which are often found in limestone and other sedimentary deposits. Briefly, I would point out that one does not preclude the other. That is, in my assessment, both can and do occur on the Giza Plateau. One can observe iron-rich layers in cross sections of the limestone. In any specific case, one must address the possible causation agents and the possible source of heat. Not simply assume everything represents classic hydrothermal features. We should consider various possibilities regarding the source of heat causing the formation of superficial features that follow Lichtenberg patterns on the surface that just happen to emanate from the two pyramids. What is the source of the heat? Did it come from below or from above? The ancient dynastic Egyptians acknowledged and recognized ancient lightning strikes and thunderbolts on the plateau, and perhaps they understood what had happened at Giza. So now, we are really getting to the bottom of this mystery. The proposition that these branch-like patterns spreading across the Giza Plateau are not Lichtenberg figures, but rather that they are naturally occurring bedrock iron veins. So for now, I will say that the most important detail in understanding the function of these features is supported by Schock's statement that, quote, both can and do occur on the Giza Plateau, end quote. And I will add that these two concepts of Lichtenberg figures from electrical current distribution through limestone bedrock due to dielectric breakdown and these naturally occurring iron veins coursing across the Giza Plateau are not mutually exclusive. And I agree that these features were absolutely heated to a high temperature. Which brings us now to the chemical analysis that proves the composition of these Lichtenberg branch patterns and also reveals evidence that these veins were integrated into the function of the Giza pyramid system in regard to electric current distribution from lightning strikes, and the chemical reaction processes occurring inside of the structures across the Giza Plateau. So I began working with the Osireion project team in 2022, and upon my arrival to Egypt in 2023, I also began to study these veins and metallic ore mineral deposits across the Giza Plateau. As some of you remember from way back in episode 75 and in Sunday Site Visit 2 during my first month of living in Egypt. And after the Asida team noticed my interest in these features of the Giza plateau, it was brought to my attention that there was still a batch of samples taken during their 2010 research expedition that were never processed. So we decided to open the case, both literally and figuratively. And we sent those samples off to the lab for chemical analysis, including these 3 from the ferruginous veins around the Great and Central Pyramid. And yes, I still have data from 11 more samples that have never been revealed that will be coming up in a later episode. So now, let's jump into the analysis so we can see what these branch-like dendritic figures are really made from. All right, and let's start here with the sample taken from the Khufu, or Great Pyramid iron vein. And I'm not going to read all of the data, but we'll just point out some significant highlights. First here, this sample showing 56.65% iron, with this globule certainly looking a lot like melted iron metal. Next, another sample here, 61.25% iron. Next, in this sample here, we have 69.31% iron. More iron-dense mineral ore, 51.36% iron. Next, this sample here, 77.99% iron. More here. This sample, a little bit more complex, and I'll read the full breakdown. We have some carbon, 28%, oxygen, 44%, sodium, 2%, aluminum, 9%, silicon, 7%, potassium, less than 1%, calcium, less than 1%, chromium, 0.26%, manganese, 0.16%, and iron, 7%. So a bit more complex sample here. Next, this from the same sample, but in a different area, now containing 20.35% iron. Another sample here, 61.21% iron. This one here, again, a bit different chemical composition, 10% carbon, 42% oxygen, 16% sulfur, 27% calcium, and almost 3% of iron. Next, another complex sample here, so I'll read the full data analysis. 6% carbon, 37% oxygen, less than 1% aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, potassium, and calcium, about 1% of manganese, and 52.69% iron. Another sample here, 41.13% iron. Another view of the same sample here containing that 41.13% iron. This sample here containing significantly more sulfur, about 17%, and about 23% of calcium, 5.71% iron. Another area of the same sample, 51.31% iron. Another area of the same sample, various breakdown, 24.26% iron. This sample here, 43.65% iron. This sample, pretty complex breakdown, also contains a small amount of titanium, 31.8% iron. And the final sample from this set of data, 59% iron. Next, on to the veins from the central pyramid. This sample here, 58.78% iron. This one, mostly sodium chloride, 33% sodium, 45% chlorine. This sample here, 48.78% iron. This sample here, again, lots of sodium chloride, 13% sodium, 70% chlorine. And this sample here, a little bit different with mostly silicon at 42%. Next, the second vein from around the central pyramid. So starting here, we have this sample, 46.48% iron. This sample here, containing a various breakdown, carbon 10%, oxygen 53%, sulfur 16%, calcium 19%, 0.25% iron. Another sample here with a rather complex breakdown. This one actually mostly manganese, 40.72%. This sample here, good bit of strontium, 40.65%, with some sulfides, 14.19%. This sample, 48.12% iron. This sample, 35.13% iron. This sample, 35.39% iron. This sample, again, 30.36% iron. All right, so now that we know the chemical composition of these naturally occurring bedrock metallic ore veins is predominantly iron, let's take a look at some other interesting elements that have been discovered in these deposits, specifically from the pits surrounding the central pyramid. And we're going to look at these ones labeled 3, 4, and 6. So here is a picture of me investigating the mineral ore in area number 3. Here I am inside of pit number 6, again, adjacent to the eastern side of the central pyramid, where I discovered this huge iron vein embedded in the side of the pit. And these metallic ore mineral deposits don't just have iron, but also contain a vast array of rare earth elements. As you can see here in these data tables showing the concentrations of lanthanum, cerium, praseodymium, neodymium, samarium, europium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, holmium, erbium, thulium, ytterbium, and lutetium. But that is not all. We also have metals like tin, 32% in this sample, nickel, 84% in this sample, and lead, almost 40% in this sample. But we also have metals like platinum, 34.97% in this sample. Here, showing more neodymium, 30% by weight in this sample. We also have elements like thorium, small percentage here in this sample, 3%. But also, and more importantly, highly conductive metals like silver, 41%, 58%, and 70% silver in these samples. And of course, we also have gold, ranging from approximately 8%, 33%, and 37% by weight, to as high as 55.64% by weight of gold in this sample. So these deposits aren't just iron, but branching dendritic veins of rich metallic ores that also contain highly electrically conductive metals. But that's not all. They also show direct evidence of high voltage electric current transmission and high temperature heating, as discovered in several samples. First, here from around the trial passages on the eastern side of the Great Pyramid. In this sample of the iron ore, the first silica microsphere, a geological formation directly associated with fulgurites or fossilized lightning. More technically, fused silica from high voltage electric current. And next, from pit number 4, adjacent to the central pyramid, from this sample area, another silica microsphere. So now we have conclusive evidence that these iron metallic ore veins containing highly conductive metals were directly affected by high voltage electric current. So these branch-like formations are not technically Lichtenberg figures, which chemically speaking would just be vitrified calcium carbonate limestone, but they are rather iron and metal-rich mineral veins. However, as mentioned at the beginning of the episode, these two things are not mutually exclusive, which brings me to the function of these branch-like features and the dielectric properties of iron oxide, as you can see here, which is double that of limestone with a dielectric constant of 14. And the structures on the Giza plateau were precisely placed to integrate directly with these metallic ore veins. For example, the Osiris shaft, as you can see here, from the chamber housing on the second level, the location of which was meticulously selected to tap directly into these thick, metallic ore-rich veins deep within the bedrock. And here, you can see this area that was once completely filled with iron oxide. A bit of it still remains up here in the corner. This picture coming from the third chamber housing on the left side of the second level. So the hypothesis presented by Dr. Schock is not too far off, as these branch-like formations are directly related to lightning strikes on the Great Pyramid. But he is just missing one critical piece, the chemical analysis that I have just presented today. But both of these integrated concepts are essential in understanding the overall picture regarding the function of the Giza Plateau.
All right, everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video, and please remember to subscribe if you are interested in the function of the Egyptian pyramids and other ancient structures from around the world. And if you want to help support the channel and get access to exclusive research content, check out the members-only channel, now up to 25 absolute banger videos. We also have 3 other channels. The new name for my wife Alexa's channel is Archaeoalchemy, a revolutionary new field of ancient site investigation coined by her exclusively. Let's go with Lex and G and the best channel on YouTube, Egyptian Street Cats, for all you cat lovers out there. And if you are interested in joining for the upcoming Land of Chem tour, please send me an email to contact@thelandofchem.com, subject line 2025 Egypt tour, and I will send you the full tour itinerary and pricing details, links to everything in the video description below. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much. Now, back to the video. All right, everyone, welcome back. And as promised, we are back here on the Giza Plateau today to investigate the iron oxide veins.
What about the camel, sir?
Ma fish camel, shukran.
Okay, have a good day, sir. Bye-bye.
All right. To investigate the branch-like dendritic iron oxide veins that were discussed in conjunction with Lichtenberg figures in the previous episode. So here, standing on the northern side of the Great Pyramid, my wife Alexa.
Hello.
From Ancient Odysseys, with me as always. So we're going to take a walk around the Great Pyramid and the Central Pyramid today, so I can show you the bedrock and how profusely permeated the limestone foundation surrounding these two pyramids is with these iron veins. And a lot of you that have been following the channel for quite some time have seen these before, but it will be good to do a refresher now that you have seen the chemical analysis data that was also presented in the previous episode. So we're going to start on the western side, an area of the Great Pyramid that is not too often shown or documented. And then we'll just take a walk around the Giza Plateau. I'm literally walking over these veins right now. And we'll show you the whole thing when we walk back around this side. All right, here we go. And so I'm not going to focus on the bedrock quite yet, because I want to start in this far back corner, and then we'll literally take a 360-degree tour around the structure. And there's some specific features here on the west side that I want to show that will help to facilitate the explanation that is coming up in next week's Thursday research episode. Quite an epic 3-part series, and I'm really excited to finally be releasing some of this chemical analysis data, as I have been studying these areas of the Giza Plateau since 2020. Well, possibly even before then. I mean, I recognized them on my 2017 research expedition, my first trip to Egypt. But it wasn't until I came to Egypt numerous times before I decided to move here, and all the research expeditions kind of blend together. But I guess it was either 2020 or 2021 when Yusuf and I discovered the iron core inside of the central pyramid, which you can see here. So one important thing to remember is that these pyramids are built on a mound of bedrock, and we showed evidence that that bedrock mound inside, so imagine this whole structure is built on a mound that is permeated with these iron oxide and conductive metal rich mineral deposits. Same thing with the Great Pyramid, and in next week's episode I will show you evidence from both inside the Central Pyramid and inside the Great Pyramid that shows that these iron formations are a part of the bedrock upon which the structures are built. All right, so now we are here on the southwest corner. And this is the area, you can't really see it, but this is the area where they used to climb. And you could literally see a path up the side of this thing, where this is the easiest side of the Great Pyramid that people used to climb up this thing. So even just starting here, you can see these veins. And if you look at the reddish material here, this is that iron oxide, the metallic mineral ore veins that are all across the Giza Plateau. So I've said this in many previous episodes, that the location for the construction of the Giza Plateau pyramid system was meticulously selected for a vast array of reasons. And so now I'll focus my attention on the foundation here. And as we walk along this western side, you'll see more of these veins. There's a vein here. There's more of this branch-like vein here. So here you can see one that starts here, moves all the way in this direction. There's another big patch. And hopefully the camera is picking up the reddish color here, which is again that iron oxide and metallic ore rich mineral veins. Here's another. And here. This is another large section here. This whole thing. It's a huge mineral vein emanating from the core of bedrock. So again, as I just demonstrated with the bedrock mound upon which the central pyramid is built, the same is true of the Great Pyramid. So you have to imagine that this structure is built on a huge mound of bedrock, and that bedrock is profuse with these iron ore and metal rich mineral deposits. So you have a huge chunk in this mound, and the veins are moving out of the central mound inside the core of this structure, and they spread all across the Giza plateau. Here's another good example. Okay, so this is the line of casing stones here, and you can follow this vein out here. Here, and again, you can see that this vein is filled with what looks like some melted material. And it has that same dark red, black from either hematite or magnetite deposits that are giving this vein that reddish, dark black color. So both magnetite and hematite being iron ore rich minerals. Here's another huge vein that goes all the way back toward the pyramid itself. And Alexa's just saying how big that vein is, and you literally can't take 10 steps as you're walking across the plateau here without crossing one of these veins. Here you can see these veins here. And I'm just going to continue to point these out. This is another big vein here. So as I said in the previous episode, these naturally occurring bedrock, limestone, metal ore mineral deposits go in conjunction with the idea of Lichtenberg patterns and electrical current discharge into the dielectric substrate of the Giza plateau bedrock. So now here's a really significant area, because now we're looking at some paving blocks. So this was the original floor level adjacent. You see the casing stones here. These are the remains of some of the original casing stones on the western side of the pyramid. This is restoration work. That is restoration work. That one further down there is restoration. But these highly weathered stones here are actually part of the casing stone facade that once covered the entire pyramid. And then here you can see how these casing stones, they actually curve slightly to meet directly with the paving blocks. So now we're going to walk over here. Again, this is an incredibly important area. Okay, so now you can see these veins. These dendritic branch-like veins that run underneath the paving blocks. So this is direct evidence that these veins were here before the installation of the paving blocks. As I just said, the location for the construction of the pyramid was selected intentionally so that they could utilize this huge bedrock iron ore permeated mound and all of these branches as a functional part of the Giza Plateau pyramid system. And these things are all over the place. Again, like I just said, you can't take 5 or 10 steps without walking over these branch-like iron veins. And some of them are very small. Like this one here is probably the width of my finger. And then some of them are huge. So here's a good example where you can still see the iron ore down inside of there. There's a good example showing how, again, I don't necessarily like the term vitrification, because this to me is not emblematic of stone turning into glass, which that is the specific definition of vitrification. This is not glass, but it is definitely an indication of stone, or rather in this case, these iron oxide and metallic ore mineral deposits that have been heated to a high temperature. It certainly does look melted. It's not glass, but it's rather stone that has been heated to a very high temperature, or metallic ore deposit that's been heated to a high temperature. Yeah, so again, there's extremely anomalous features here on the Giza Plateau, and sometimes it's difficult to tell. So like this, for example, Alexa was pointing this out because it does look really weird. Is this the result from later quarrying activities where they were removing the paving stones? It's really very, very difficult to say what some of these anomalous features are. You see more of these small veins. And we're just going to keep rolling today so that you can see, again, how abundant these branch-like veins are on the Giza Plateau. And other than myself, and Dr. Shock, I don't know of any other researchers that have bothered to pay the remotest bit of attention to these incredibly significant functional features of the Giza Plateau. So this is a great example of where you can see these veins coming from inside the core of the pyramid, moving out into the bedrock. I don't know how well the color is going to translate on the screen here, but this one is particularly red. I mean, the nomenclature of vein is absolutely accurate because they look like veins. Red veins carrying that iron-rich mineral. Okay, here's another rather large one. Okay, so here we have paving blocks, or rather what's left of the paving stones here, this layer. And you can see this thick vein coming from underneath the paving blocks going across the bedrock. Another big one emanating from the base of the pyramid and branching out across the plateau. And there's a whole bunch of them here. This whole area was filled with these veins. And nobody even bothers to pay one bit of attention. This whole pit is filled with it here. And I hope the color here is picking up on the camera. You can see how red this is. Coming from now the northwestern corner of the plateau, or the Great Pyramid. Okay. So here, let's follow this vein. And I hope you can see how red this is. Going right into the bedrock core of the pyramid. All right, so now, cigar o'clock. So I'm gonna fire this bad boy up, and then we will continue our investigation of the Giza Plateau. Stay tuned. All right, we'll continue on. And hopefully you're starting to recognize the patterns of these veins. And once you know what you're looking for, it's extremely perplexing how this has gone overlooked in regard to the construction and the operation of these structures, because those two things go hand in hand. And you can see another huge vein here. Huge veins here. Again, this vein going back underneath the paving stones. And you can see this thick vein just ripping off through the bedrock here. All right, modern entrance into the Great Pyramid on the northern face here. So now we're here back on the bedrock. Paving stones here, bedrock here. Smaller veins running through this area here. Here's another set of these veins.
Really? It could still be in there.
And again, here's a good one so you can see some of the color.
Coffee tea, coffee mix, Nescafe,
And this area is just teeming with these veins. All of these cracks are filled with iron. And I can see all the red. Here's a big fat vein, and this has been filled in with, these are blocks that have been put in this to fill in the huge crack. All right, so now we have made it to the northeastern corner of the Great Pyramid. And I'll show you another interesting feature. We're gonna take a quick break, fire this bad boy up. Okay, so weekly Sunday site visit cigar review time. This is the warped La Colmena. And I've smoked this cigar before in previous site expeditions, but I've never given it an official rating or review. So now we're gonna fire this bad boy up. Sadiki, ana bestegel. And then I'll be right back. All right, now we're in business and let the real research begin. So we're looking at the northeastern corner of the Great Pyramid. And one important detail to note about the construction of the Great Pyramid is that the entire structure is integrated directly into the bedrock. So looking at this section here, this is all bedrock. This is a limestone masonry block. This is limestone masonry. This is bedrock. The northeastern corner of the Great Pyramid is integrated directly into the Giza Plateau. And you may remember from stories of antiquity about ancient Masonic practices, the northeastern corner of the building was always the first stone laid. It is the foundation stone of the entire construction. And that is true as well with the construction of the Great Pyramid here on the Giza Plateau, northeastern corner being the first stone that was cut from the bedrock and the primary foundation stone of the entire structure. And you can see here, so again, we're looking at this cornerstone integrated directly with the bedrock. There is no seam here. This is bedrock. This is all bedrock in through this piece here. And look at these veins. All of these veins of that iron oxide metallic ore rich bedrock. And you can see here as we walk through this area on the eastern side of the Great Pyramid, it is literally completely covered with these formations. All of these crisscross patterns, all of these seemingly insignificant cracks in the stone. This is all iron oxide veins. I was looking for Lex, and of course, she's over there doing camel selfies. You want camel? I make good price for you. What's up, buddy? All right. You gonna be YouTube famous? All right, so initial tasting notes on our Sunday cigar review. So I will say that this is a much lighter profile cigar than the Royal Palms that we were smoking last week.
Something for a famous guy.
I'm not famous. Not yet.
I asked you about mine. I'm famous here.
Oh yeah.
Famous guy here.
Good.
You're busy.
So this one, man, it's real nice honey and what I would call a graham cracker note. Very, very good cigar. This is a Corona size. I prefer a Robusto. Corona being my second favorite cigar size. Draw is a little bit tight. The Royal Palms has a fantastic draw. I like to be able to get plumes of smoke when I take a pull. This one's a little bit tight, but it's also incredibly windy up here, so not too shabby. Off to a good start. All right, so you can see how abundant the veins are here on the eastern side of the Great Pyramid. And we're gonna get a bottle of water from one of these vendors so we can pour some water on these veins so you can really see the color. Here's a good example. And again, hopefully the camera is picking up that beautiful reddish orange color. And it's all over the place. All of this is a huge piece that I'm standing on right here. Again, it looks melted. Again, I don't like the term vitrification as applied to the bedrock here. It's not vitrified. It's not turned into crude glass, but it has certainly been heated to a high temperature. This is a huge piece of iron ore here. So let me clarify something here. So a lot of these veins, or what appear to be cracks, is where the ore material is no longer present. So for example, this crack here, all of the ore, all of the iron ore has been removed from this area, either mechanically or physically by human interaction, or geologically has been weathered away. But here you can see the ore still in place. And you can see here, hopefully that shiny red color. So all of these features that appear to just be cracks were originally filled with material. And in a lot of these, all you can see is the traces of red, the iron oxide on the edges, where this one, again, you can see the ore here is still in place. And in some areas, they've also filled in the vein. So this is a piece of limestone that's been stuck into the vein to fill in this crack. Is a huge piece of iron. Sadiq. So any married men out there know you spend half of your life waiting for your wife. My wife. All right, there she is. the lovely Alexa from Ancient Odysseys. And shout out to her for first bringing the research of Dr. Robert Schoch to my attention. Shukran. No, Sadiki, ana min Masr, ana Masri, fi Madi. All right, so here's a good example of what we're looking at. So you can see the vein here. You can see patchwork fill in that has been placed into the vein itself. And where does this vein go? We've discussed this numerous times before on the channel. These veins of iron oxide and other metallic ore rich minerals, boom, they go right into the pit. So here you can see this vein emanating from the iron oxide permeated core, leading out from the core of the structure directly into the so-called boat pit. And you can even see where the vein continues up this side and goes further in that direction toward the trial passages. So now we'll take a walk over to the trial passages so I can show you the deposit where the first silica microsphere was discovered. Leading once again down here into one of these quote-unquote boat pits. And look at this piece right here. This bulbous, massive, melted looking piece right here is that same. This looks darker. So there's hematite, which is the redder color, and magnetite, which is the darker color. This maybe looks like magnetite because it's almost black. And this whole bulbous piece right here looks melted. Yeah, this whole lump here is that same material. Man, this whole thing has been repaired. There's modern fill in there. There's repairs down there. I wouldn't be at all surprised if this goes out and down in that direction. There's a ton of fill-in work here. All right, so now we're going to walk down toward the trial passage. big lump. This is a huge piece of that iron oxide, iron ore, metallic ore. All right, and here I just stepped into this thing. This is one of the original ancient channels. This one was confirmed by an archaeologist that was working here on the black basalt Eastern Temple floor, that this channel is an original conduit, as there are modern channels that were excavated and carved out to house the cables for the modern sound and light show. But that one that I just showed you is an original piece, an original feature of the Giza Plateau. So essentially, the area that we're walking through here is a continuation of that huge iron vein leading from the pyramid, spreading out into this area. Leading into this area here. And this is an area where the sample was taken by my colleagues at the Osireion project, where we discovered the first silicate microsphere. And all of this material here is all iron and metal ore. And I've showed the significant acidic erosion in this area, leading down into the trial passage. So all of this area here is filled with this mineral ore. Emanating from the core of the Great Pyramid. All right. So we were just over here looking at the northern opening of the trial passage. Here's the southern opening. And you can see how weathered and eroded this area is, leading down into that passage system. Now we're going to walk back up toward the Eastern Temple black basalt floor, so I can show you another big vein. These two cracks here are more of this and this material is incredibly dry and brittle. See a big piece of it right here. And this whole vein, all of these cracks used to be completely filled. See more of it down in here. Chunks here, chunk here. Iron and metal ore rich minerals. All right, so here, looking at more of these veins running below the black basalt paving stones of the Eastern Temple. And this is another critical feature of the function of this component of the system that I have not begun to reveal quite yet, but it's coming up soon. So again, remember, these veins run below this black basalt paving. So if we follow these veins, where does the vein go? Into yet another of these quote unquote boat pits. All right, so I think you're starting to get the picture that these veins literally cover the limestone bedrock foundation of the Giza Plateau. And there's so many more components up here to analyze and discuss. I will be returning to this black basalt paving soon, as this is one of my favorite functional components of the Great Pyramid system. By far one of my greatest research discoveries, the function of the black basalt adjacent to the Great Pyramid. And those of you that saw my interview on the Danny Jones podcast have already had a teaser about the function of that structure. More veins leading into boat pit number 3. There's a vein here, vein here, another vein here, leading down into the pit. Here, and these veins going directly into boat pit number 3, and you can see that vein continuation going across toward one of the satellite pyramids and into the satellite pyramid. So remember, as a preface to next week's function of the iron oxide veins episode, that these veins connect different structures across the Giza Plateau. So let me say that one more time. The location of all of the structures on the Giza Plateau, including the underground Osiris shaft system, The locations for these was intentionally selected so that each individual structure was connected and integrated into a network via these iron oxide and conductive metal rich veins. So now we're going to take a walk across the plateau to investigate the bedrock surrounding the central pyramid. All right, so we're taking a rest here in the shade, literally sitting on the side of the Great Pyramid. And final tasting notes review for the warped La Colmena down to the nub here. So all warped cigars have a very just robust leathery profile. As I said before, the honey and the graham cracker really transcend the entire smoking experience. The draw really opened up about halfway through the cigar. Of course, the longer you smoke a cigar, the more nicotine, and I'm definitely feeling it right now. Caffeine and nicotine, best combination in the world. Critical for pyramid research. Maybe a little peppery bite there toward the end. Of course, that honey always turns into kind of a molasses rich syrupy flavor, like a maple syrup. We've got some nice floral notes, some like black tea notes, which are some of my favorite. You get floral tea notes in a cigar, and it just doesn't get any better than that. So again, the La Colmena warped cigars, banger. I feel like I'm smoking a roach. All right, that's it for today's Sunday site visit cigar review. Next stop, Central Pyramid. All right, so now we've made it to the southeastern corner. And you can see traces of veins here. Now we're on the southern face. And it appears I haven't spent too much time here on the southern side. This used to be the area where they had the solar boat museum back here. And it seems that the concentration of the iron veins is much less here on the southern side. But what I'm really looking for ازيك صديقي شكرا وانت. All right, so while we're here, we'll take a look. So believe it or not, this is casing stone. And this actually came up on TikTok, where unfortunately everybody gets their friggin' information about the Egyptian pyramids from TikTok. And they were showing this area of casing stones. They're like, oh, look at this thick salt crust or crust that was on the pyramid casing. This is not a crust. And these TikTok videos are all made by people that have never stepped 1 foot into Egypt. And I'll explain exactly what we're looking at here. It's not a crust. It's not a coating compound. So what you see here, this is all restoration. This is original casing stone here. This was all casing block. And this part up here are pieces of the original eroded casing stones. This is all restoration work. This is bricks. Modern bricks covered up with cement that is supposed to restore this portion of casing stones. This is not a coating or a crust or a layer. This is original casing blocks. Highly eroded casing blocks, and everything below this is bricks covered in concrete. And again, this was going around in the social media circles by people who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. So you can see here, again, this is highly eroded casing stones. And the pieces where the casing stone was hanging over in a lip has been reinforced. I struggle to call this restoration because this is absolute garbage work. This here is all modern. Bricks covered in concrete and the original casing stone hanging over the top. So I'm actually glad that I came over here to show you the truth. Please don't get your information from TikTok. And definitely don't get it from people that have never stepped 1 foot in Egypt. Because unless you see this thing up close in person, again, look, this is all bricks. See the brickwork in here? Covered in concrete to restore this portion of the casing stones. And you can see the level of those casing stones here, consistent all the way across. These are all individual casing blocks that originally went all the way down. This part is just eroded. So like I was saying, the veins on this side are much less concentrated until we get back over here. On the southwestern side where we began today's site expedition. never noticed this feature before. There's a channel running underneath this block through here over in this direction. So we're going to follow this channel. See where it goes. So we're still walking in this channel, and what do we find here? This whole rut here is all iron, and then the channel goes back here underground, all covered up with the modern roadway. This is the road here, and this is the channel that leads back in this direction. I mean, this is a huge vein here. Hopefully you can see the reddish color of the vein here. And this piece just disappears back into the sand. I have a feeling that we're standing in a pretty critical component, because as we started walking over here, the guys were like, no, 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 no. So again, we're looking at a channel here. كله كويس يا خلاص خلاص أنا بروح هنا وخلاص. So this is that channel that ran through here. So we're just walking through this bedrock area here, and this whole area is filled with these veins. So I'm going to keep the camera rolling, because this whole section, the connection between the Great Pyramid and the Central Pyramid is completely covered with the modern road. And we have just enough time to get to one little area in front of the Central Pyramid that I know is permeated with these veins, just teeming with this metal ore branch-like dendritic formations. Humps a minute. All right, so the Giza Plateau is closing for the day. Just humps a minute. Humps a minute. Please, lo samat. Okay, okay. All right, so he's not going to let us get any closer, but okay, here's an area where Lex is standing. see the color of the vein that once branched through this area. And we're just gonna, yeah, Ana Baruch, Sphinx. It's okay. I'm going. So we're gonna go off the plateau. I know, Ana Baruch, Sphinx exit. All right. So that'll be a subject for a secondary site visit follow-up. And again, I intentionally chose this little area here because we're literally following a vein path here down in through this highly eroded section. Yep. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's Sunday site visit expedition to the Giza Plateau to investigate the branch-like dendritic formations, these iron oxide and highly conductive metal-rich mineral deposits emanating from the central bedrock core of the Great Pyramid that branch across the entire Giza Plateau. All right, everyone, just a quick announcement. The first book in the Land of Chem series is now back in stock. This gorgeous Egyptian blue second edition is the exact same text as the first print, but now featuring the new blue color design. Also, a brand new merch shop is up and running, featuring all of your favorite logos, tons of new color options, and my personal favorite, stickers. So whether you are sticking these to the bottom of your skateboard or plastering the walls of your office bathroom stalls, go grab some now and put them everywhere you can find a spot. All available at thelandofchem.com. Thank you all so much for the support. Now, back to the video.
Now, to begin, what you are about to see is the first Land of Chem exclusive documentation of the iron and metal ore mineral veins infused within the core of the Great Pyramid of Giza. This is footage from a recent private entry into the subterranean chamber, during which I discovered these massive deposits of metallic ore running through the bedrock. Now remember that the northern descending shaft and the subterranean chamber were both excavated directly from the bedrock of the Giza Plateau. So this is the first video evidence that the core of the Great Pyramid is a natural bedrock mound permeated with huge iron and metal ore mineral deposits.
Look at that.
Iron oxide
gosh.
permeated bedrock in here.
Here, shine up.
Core of the Great Pyramid.
Do we have to go on our bellies?
Nope.
Tight squeeze.
Big fat vein of iron oxide.
All right, next. The following is another Land of Chem exclusive that I discovered inside of the primary chamber of the Central Pyramid during my 2022 research expedition. And remember again that this entire chamber, with the exception of the ceiling blocks, was excavated directly from the bedrock mound upon which the Central Pyramid was constructed. This whole chamber, the lower portion of which you can see here, was cut from the huge mound of limestone bedrock that forms the core of the Central Pyramid. And I have been investigating these iron veins, one of which you can see right here, running up the northern wall of the primary chamber, since my first expedition to Egypt in 2017. But in 2022, I had a private entry into the Osiris shaft that really opened my eyes to the full scope of this iron vein network. And after Yusuf and I ascended from the darkness of the Osiris shaft, we ventured into the Central Pyramid, where I began to discover more of these metal ore veins running through the primary chamber, again, a segment of which you can see here. The vast majority of the iron and metal ore has been removed from these veins, and the cracks are now filled in with modern concrete cover-up. But you can still very clearly see some of the reddish iron ore material here and here, surrounded by the concrete fill-in. Yusuf also pointed out an area in the connecting shaft system that he had discovered where these iron deposits are also visible in the bedrock core of the pyramid. So here we once again have indisputable evidence that the bedrock core and foundation of the Central Pyramid is also permeated with these iron and metal ore mineral deposits. So the first clips that you are about to see are from my 2022 research expedition, where I first discovered these veins inside of the primary chamber. And the second clip is from my 2023 visit inside of the Central Pyramid, I think during my first month of living in Egypt.
So you see here, what we're looking at, this patch? Yeah. Goes all the way down here. And this has been covered with modern concrete. And this is a stream of iron oxide that once ran all the way into the chamber and towards, and it dipped down here. Up there's the patch going up the wall. And this is a new discovery. I just noticed this. And I pointed out to Yusuf, and he's like, oh, that's modern concrete. I was like, no, there's iron in there.
But the modern concrete is over a layer.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see it. There's another good spot on the wall. It's iron oxide.
Right here.
Yep. So this is very similar to what we just saw down in the Osiris shaft, where they were
a layer on top of the ancient layer.
And they were tapping in to these iron oxide deposits in order to excavate these chambers. And you can see it runs all the way up and back into,
Big chunk of iron.
like a bar of iron in the wall right there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are inside the Central Pyramid of Giza. And we are at the convergence of the upper inlet shaft and the lower inlet shaft So from the outside of this structure, there are two openings that would have led from the reservoir, delivering water into the internal system. And what Yusuf is looking at here is the deposit of iron oxide that we discovered in the core of the structure. So this,
Beam the flashlight.
yeah.
So you can see.
So this is your upper inlet, and there's actually a space between this block and the one behind it. There's an opening. And if you look,
Get closer to where I'm looking.
see if we can get a good angle. Oh, perfect. That's the money shot. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. The first video documentation of the iron oxide deposits located in the core of the Central Pyramid. Stay tuned for more. And you can see here, the vein of iron oxide starts right here. It's been patched up. And all of these things are new, but the vein runs here. And look at what we have right there. Iron oxide running through the core of the structure. And you may notice that this entire section has been excavated down and filled in with modern blocks. And this container sinks down several feet into the floor here. So it was not this level, it actually caved down into the floor. There's a pit here. This vein starts all the way up here, goes down. And runs through the entire chamber. There it is right there. Running back two parallel streams that then converge. There's actually three streams here that run and converge back into that wall. And this is a personal discovery that I made during my last visit here. And if you look up there, this is the inlet shaft. And I did get a chance to get up there and stick my head into that hole, and there is what looks like evidence for a shaft leading into this chamber from here. So the flow process, dilute sulfuric acid flows into the chamber here, filling the lower portion of the chamber here, which was filled with a deposit of solid sodium chloride. And of course, they have discovered inside of this chamber was filled with a deposit of sodium chloride, salt, covering the entire chamber. So this portion here comes in from the outside of the structure, the upper reservoir intake. This portion here is the lower reservoir intake. And if we look up here, this is the bedrock core of the structure. And you can see, hopefully in there, the prolific amount of iron oxide inside the core of the structure.
All right, now that you have seen video documented evidence that both the Great Pyramid and Central Pyramids are constructed on immense mounds of natural limestone bedrock that contain deposits of these iron and metallic ore minerals. These metal veins extend from the core of both structures, stretching and branching across the Giza Plateau. And you are about to see the first preliminary mapping of these naturally occurring iron veins that connect all of the structures surrounding these two pyramids. As you just saw in Sunday Site Visit 65, these are all veins that I have personally documented and confirmed, which create an interwoven network of components that are linked by these metal ore mineral deposits. So here, you can see the iron-permeated bedrock core of the Great Pyramid and the first major iron vein leading directly under the black basalt paving stone of the Eastern Temple. Next, the veins leading from the core of the Great Pyramid into the so-called quote-unquote boat pits and toward the trial passage system. Next, the veins connecting the Great Pyramid directly into all three satellite pyramids. Now, technically, there are 4 satellite pyramids surrounding the Great Pyramid, the fourth of which is located right here. But this area is still mostly buried in sand, and I can't confirm a direct iron conduit here, but I'm almost certain that it does exist. Next, an iron link between the Great Pyramid and this temple structure here that will be featured in an upcoming Sunday Site Visit episode. Next, a major functional connection emanating from the core of the Great Pyramid and connecting via a massive iron and metal ore mineral vein directly into the Osiris shaft. And I have documented proof of this vein that you will see in just a moment. Next, a major vein stretching across the Giza Plateau, linking the core of the Great Pyramid into the core of the Central Pyramid. Now, things are getting really interesting, but there's more. Next, iron veins connecting the core of the Central Pyramid into these quote-unquote boat pits that you have seen me extensively investigating during many different site visits dating back to 2020. Next, another vein running from the core of the Central Pyramid into the Eastern Temple. Next, another huge connection linking the Central Pyramid directly into the Valley Temple area. And as you walk down the causeway, if you pay close attention, you will see that the bedrock foundation of this entire component is teeming with dark red iron and metal ore mineral deposits. Next, we have a connection from the Central Pyramid leading down into this area here, which will also be featured in an upcoming Sunday Site Visit. Next, a vein leading in the direction of the Carrowkeel temple or pyramid. And I have also documented the existence of these iron deposits in that area when I recently explored the structure. And finally, a connection from the Central Pyramid down toward the final pyramid and quarrying area to the southeast. There is so much more to this system of interconnected structures than I have just shown. But now you have a preliminary idea of how these structures are integrated components of a massive network. So now, the big reveal. What is the function of these iron and metallic ore mineral veins stretching and branching across the Giza Plateau? So as I presented in episode 131, we have extensive chemical analysis data showing that these branch-like dendritic formations stretching across the Giza Plateau are naturally occurring iron and metallic ore mineral deposits. They are not Lichtenberg figures. Chemically speaking, lightning and high voltage electric current cannot transform calcium carbonate limestone into iron or any of the other metals that have been discovered in the chemical analysis from samples taken from these branch-like dendritic formations. These are naturally occurring iron and metal ore mineral veins that permeate the limestone bedrock of the Giza Plateau. However, and I have said this so many times before, the location for the Giza Pyramid Complex was intentionally selected to utilize these metallic ore mineral veins. And these metal ore veins, which contain highly electrically conductive metals, functioned in conjunction with the concept of a Lichtenberg figure, which occurs due to the distribution of electric current from lightning passing through a dielectric medium, such as iron oxide. So within these veins, as you can see here, we have highly electrically conductive metals like silver and gold. And we also have direct evidence of high voltage electrical current transmission through these veins in these silica microspheres that are found in conjunction with fulgurites, silica that has been fused due to high voltage electric current, otherwise known as fossilized lightning. So once again, these branch-like dendritic formations are not technically Lichtenberg patterns. They are naturally occurring iron and metal ore mineral veins. This has been proven by the chemical analysis from samples of these branches. However, they function in the exact same way as a Lichtenberg figure, as these veins were used to distribute the high voltage electric current from lightning strikes on the Great Pyramid directly into a network of components across the Giza Plateau. And now, time for another Land of Chem exclusive. Direct proof of these conductive metal conduits leading directly into the Osiris shaft. As you can see here, these thick veins are located in the container housings on the second level of the Osiris shaft. These metallic ore veins connect directly into the core of the Great Pyramid. This electrically conductive connection was used to distribute a tiny fraction of the high voltage electric current from lightning strikes on the Great Pyramid directly into this underground chamber system. That electric current flowed through the veins down into the chamber housings, inducing electric fields within this container system to facilitate the ultrasound chemical reaction that was occurring therein. And I just released the function of the Osiris shaft system part 2 on the members only channel that features this exact slide presentation, explaining not only the full scope of operation inside of the Osiris shaft, but also the function of the cavernous bedrock shafts adjacent to the Central Pyramid Causeway.
All right, everyone, as I just mentioned, if you want to help support the channel and get access to some exclusive research content, check out the Land of Chem members only channel now with a new tier called The Alchemists, featuring a 3-part episode revealing the function of the Teotihuacan Pyramid Complex. Also, a completely unscripted, unedited Ask Me Anything video every single month, now on part 5. And ladies and gentlemen, I can finally announce a brand new series entitled The Land of Chem in the Lab that will feature a variety of experiments designed to test the hypotheses presented here on the Land of Chem channel. Links to everything in the video description below. Thank you all so much for the support. Now, back to the video.
Now, to begin, here on the left is a chunk of extremely pure hematite, or iron oxide, that you can find in the geological display case at the Cairo Museum. This case has samples of all of the various types of stones and minerals that were known about in ancient Egypt and utilized in the construction of the pyramids and temples across the country. So clearly, this iron-rich ore material was known about in the ancient time. And here on the right is a piece of iron oxide from the eastern side of the central pyramid. These are the same type of material, with the exception of the Giza sample also containing a variety of other metals. But as shown in the chemical analysis, this is predominantly iron oxide, specifically mostly hematite. And today, you are about to see confirmation of these iron and metal ore mineral veins branching out from the core of the central pyramid that connect into the eastern ore pits, directly into the eastern temple, leading out towards the Carrowkeel temple or monument, and down the causeway, leading directly into the Sphinx enclosures and Valley Temple. But that's not all. We're also going to add these veins here in blue, an explanation for which will be presented during the footage. You will also see direct evidence of extreme high temperature heating of these veins as they distributed the high voltage electric current from lightning strikes into various components of the Giza Plateau chemical manufacturing network. So now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I hope you enjoy Sunday Site Visit 66, the iron veins of the Central Pyramid.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another Sunday Site Visit here on the land of Chem. We're back on the Giza Plateau today to continue our investigation that ended last week here around the Giza Plateau surrounding the Central Pyramid. As always, my lovely wife Alexa from Ancient Odysseys, and we were just investigating this area here right in front of us, because as you can see, we'll start over here, a bunch of camels napping in the sand over here. So what we have here are huge limestone blocks. So this part is not bedrock. These blocks are of similar size to the limestone blocks that you can see in the Eastern Temple over here. So there actually may have been a structure out in this direction on the northern side of the Eastern Temple. I'm taking a good look at these so I can differentiate the blocks from the bedrock itself. So you can clearly see the joint here. This down here is bedrock, and there's blocks here, here, and here. I think there's a natural fissure in the bedrock that runs through here. So I'm starting early today. The Sunday site visit cigar. Today the warped La Hacienda. All right, so in this direction where these modern stairs are is the bedrock integration with these blocks over here. All right, because as you can see here, this area is bedrock. And I can already see all of these metal ore mineral deposits streaming through this area. So here, these look like very roughly shaped blocks here. This piece here. Great Pyramid of Giza that we explored in last week's Sunday site visit. And I'm just doing a bit of an assessment of this area here. Here you can see a piece of some very blackened looking mineral ore here, looking extremely charred. And you may have noticed that I was just looking at a channel running down in this direction, and it's very difficult to decipher in some cases whether these channels are modern or ancient, because as you can see here, This is a modern channel that has now been covered over with concrete that hides the cables for the sound and light show. Because at night, on the weekends, they'll turn on the lights that illuminate the pyramids on the Giza Plateau. And that immense lighting system requires power cables. So they cut trenches through the Giza Plateau. Here you can see one of the wires, actually. There you go. Pretty funny as they seem, they are mimicking the ancient techniques for electrical current distribution across the Giza Plateau. She loves these damn camels. This guy's got some pretty interesting decorations. Hey, buddy. Are you nice?
I'm not sure. Oh, take a picture with Casanova. Casanova, man.
Iowa. All right. Mishayis Kamel, Shukran Sadiki. And here you can see more of that modern conduit and cabling system. Oh, I see some areas of particular interest for today. And you may be able to see the color of this bedrock here is all red in through here. Let me step down here so you can see it a little bit closer. And the reason I was looking at that area over there with such intense scrutiny is it does appear that there are very irregular limestone blocks integrated with the bedrock in that area. So here, this is bedrock foundation. Here you can see a good piece right there. And those of you that have been following along, we now know, or rather, I have proposed that these veins of iron and conductive metal mineral deposits were utilized for the distribution of electric current from lightning across the Giza Plateau into various other structures. I remember back in 2017, this area here had my intense attention. Look at how black all of this material is. I mean, it looks like this vein has just been burned through, heated to extremely high temperature. And you can see the vein runs here, back off in this direction. So we're going to do a pretty intensive investigation of the origins of these veins, because I can see it over here in the bedrock, and we're going to walk all the way around this direction. But this area is a perfect example of the extremely high temperature heating that occurred in these veins. Look here, you can see this area. I mean, these look, you can see the dark color here of these streams. This piece in particular, I mean, it literally looks like melted iron that's just fused into the bedrock. And you can see the pattern here. It's like if you took a piece of rebar and just melted it at a super high temperature and fused it into the limestone bedrock. And we're here on the northern face of the central pyramid. And those of you that are coming on the tour later this year, you will get to see this up close in person. Here's again that area. So this is all iron and metal ore minerals that has just been heated to an extremely high temperature. You can see areas here, for example, let me pick up this little piece. This little piece right here still has a very reddish color to it. And like this piece here is still very red. And this is the vein here. You can see another vein running into the core of the central pyramid. All right, so now we're going to walk around this bedrock edge here. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to follow this vein. And you can see this huge roasted. I mean, this had to be heated to an extremely high temperature. We're going to follow this from the northern face of the central pyramid. And you can see more of this blackened red material here, and this is the vein here. So we're going to go in this direction. I can see some red and orange and black color in through here. And you may be wondering, well, why the hell am I walking over here to this outcrop of nothing? Well, it's not an outcrop of nothing. Look at here. Look at this. This circular area here, this is all iron oxide. This is a huge tubular vein, very, very similar to what we saw down in the pit on the eastern side. That picture that I've been showing with that huge circular, again, tubular vein is a perfect description. This is that same material here. It almost looks like a gigantic wire, which that description is pretty apropos for the function of these formations. And here's a piece of that material. Hopefully you can see the red color. And look here. This red material here, all in through here, and this crack here is most likely the, see here, if I go up a little bit, look at this, all of this roasted reddish black material in through here, all that same mineral. And Alexa and I walked this area before when we were coming back from our expedition into the Tomb of the Birds. So if you look here, the crack is here. More of this material in through here. The vein carries down this way through this crack in this direction, connecting into that blackened area, which you can see right here. And just a few steps away, look at this, all of this roasted material here, all this black looking material, it's all the same thing. That iron and metal ore mineral deposits, all of which do appear to have been heated to a very high temperature. And that high temperature heating is what causes the formation of those silica microspheres, the fused silica particles that are found directly in conjunction with fulgurites, fossilized lightning. So when lightning hits a surface like sand, it will fuse those particles into a branch-like dendritic formation, a fulgurite. So those silica microspheres are found in fulgurites, and we have found those silica microspheres inside of these metallic ore deposits. You can see here, so this is the metal ore here. This is limestone. This part right here is limestone. But this material surrounding it, actually holding this piece up, because the ore deposit goes around the bottom here. So there's quite literally a piece of limestone sitting on top of a large deposit of this iron and metal ore mineral. Man, this is a huge vein. Look at all this. This is all here. All this. This is all that iron oxide metal ore. Limestone, ore. Limestone, limestone. And this is all ore in through here. All of this red material. Look at all this. Limestone, ore. See more of the black material here, limestone here, ore here. And man, this area is just teeming with it. Here's another huge crack or vein filled with that material leading down here. It's funny. So this is a piece of modern rebar. Again, as I was just saying, like these things are huge metal wires, like fused pieces of rebar, melted pieces of rebar fused. Look at this huge vein. And of course they've used this, so you see these modern, like I was just saying, mimicking the ancient method for electrical current distribution across the Giza plateau. Here are some wires, and they've used this channel that was a iron and conductive metal ore deposit to house these modern cables. And man, as I'm walking through this area, you might as well be on the surface of Mars. I mean, all of this bedrock here is just, there's more of it than I can possibly point out in this area. مش عايز كامل صديقي شكرا. More. So it does appear that this entire area was filled with this iron and metal ore. Let's see another super blackened chunk right here. It's just all over the place in this area. All right. I was going to go down, but this area sort of has my attention at the moment, so we're just going to keep walking. All right, here's another example of a modern, you can see there the power cord running through this. This is a huge piece of iron oxide ore right here. All right, so another theme that I have presented recently is that in order to harness effectively the immense voltage from lightning, you have to distribute and diffuse some of that voltage away from vital components. And this whole crack here, it would have been filled with this ore material. So let's say you have the lightning strike on top of the Great Pyramid. Through any individual vein, you have a minute, tiny fraction of that voltage being distributed through the vein. That is the secret. You don't try to capture all of it once and send it down into the Osiris shaft and blow the whole damn thing out of the ground. Tiny, tiny fractions of the voltage were being distributed for electrochemical operations. The rest of it was being distributed into the bedrock, away from the structures, which is perhaps what we're looking at here. An area that could effectively transmit and distribute some of that voltage away from the structures. Some of the veins going directly into components, other structures going away, distributing some of that voltage back into the bedrock. This channel definitely caught my attention. Because some of these are ancient channels. So this is an ancient channel here. You can see that it was carved out of this bedrock part here. And there's just wires running through all of this. Some wires sticking out of the ground right there. All right, carrying on. I was just walking through this channel here, and look at all these. All of these are all veins. So we're just gonna walk along this area. Because there's several things that I want to show you today around the Central Pyramid. One thing at a time. So what I'm standing on here is bedrock. Limestone bedrock of the Giza Plateau. And you can see here this huge wall. That's bedrock. This is all bedrock. And the bedrock was quarried out, lowered, and flattened to create the surface upon which the Central Pyramid was constructed. And they used blocks that were quarried from this area, and they transported them directly into the core of the structure. That is one feature of the construction of the Giza Plateau pyramids that is not often discussed, is the fact that there are local quarries on the Giza Plateau that were utilized to source stone material that went directly into the core. So you can see here, all this bedrock used to be up to here. This whole thing was filled with bedrock. And they had to quarry all this out, flatten out the surface, use those blocks, which you can still see here. You see these blocks? Those are limestone blocks. This is part of the quarry. These blocks moved right from the quarry directly into the core of the pyramid. I mean, it leaves me speechless, even having been up here. This is interesting. There's fragments of red granite. Piece here, piece here, piece here. Piece right there. A few chunks here. Piece here. All right, so here again you can get a pretty good view of this quarry area. So they were quarrying blocks out of this whole area, cutting them into rough squares, and then moving them directly into the pyramid site. But I can also clearly see a huge vein that was left intact. You'll see it when we get down there. There's a vein that runs through and in this direction. You may be able to see it from up here. And just looking down at this, I can see there's just, they're all over the place on the Giza plateau. And this is actually my first time to get up on this western side of the central pyramid. So we're going to walk down this way and then back inside of the enclosure wall. And I love those shots of the pyramids where you can see the shadow from a cloud moving across the surface of the pyramid. It looks like it's alive. Look at that, and it just moves around the corner here. That is awesome. Really glad I got that on camera. And I'm not going to get too much closer to this area, but this section all in through here is red and black. Damn, that's a pretty awesome view. So we're going to keep walking. You aren't going to miss much from the rest of this area. So we're going to walk down in this direction, make a U-turn, and head back toward the north on the inside of this enclosure. And we'll pick back up over here. All right, and we're back. Here, as you can see, on the inside of this bedrock enclosure surrounding the central pyramid. صديقي من معادي ايوه انا مصري ايوه شكرا. All right, so here we're back on bedrock. And you can see the ever-present veins and we're going to walk through this area that was pointed out by my wife Alexa. All of these shafts that lead down into the bedrock. You can see here I'm walking on a modern conduit that holds electrical cables. Here's another one of these modern channels here. And this fissure here, I could see a bunch of iron oxide in through here. So this vein, oh, here it goes. And taking a good moment in the shade. And you can see how much material was removed, how high this wall is. Probably 30 feet. And the western face of the central pyramid. Here's one of these shafts that go down into the bedrock away from the structure. Iowa. All right, we had to cut there for just a moment. So now we've made it to the northwestern corner, and we'll resume our investigation of the bedrock foundation. So this is all bedrock here. And we see more of these veins. ما فيش USD, ما فيش dollar. No, no, it's okay. شكرا. And this is a vein right here. That leads, so let's follow this vein. Back into this bedrock fissure. There's a big chunk of this iron oxide and metallic ore mineral. So in the process, as I was saying when we were standing up there, in the process of excavating this down, the veins here on the lower surface of the bedrock were left intact. And this entire area on the northwestern corner is just teeming with these veins. Iowa. And that's one of the security guards. You know, apparently they don't like people walking on that western side. Let's just look here. There's more. It's a huge area here. There's another big and again, these veins, it may not look like it now because most of the ore has been removed out of these cracks, but these cracks were filled with these iron oxide and metallic ore deposits. So now we'll go over here so I can show you that vein that runs through the quarry that they left intact. So here we were just on top of here, and this is the quarry area. You can see all of these square blocks. So these are limestone bedrock blocks that were being quarried out and excavated from this area. There's a vein starting over here. Okay. So the vein goes in through here, comes out into the bedrock, and I can follow this vein all the way in through here, and you can see that they left it intact here, here, which to me this is an indication why the quarrying stopped at this level, because they wanted to maintain these veins running through the bedrock in this area They didn't want to excavate them out any further. And you can see this vein. All of these blocks up until this point were regular squares, but you can see this curving snake-like vein that slithered through this whole area. And then it ends up back over here. Alright, that guy finally fucked off. So we can go back. Here, I'll show you another huge one. And these things are all over the place here. Another huge vein running through here. There's another one here, leading up in this direction. And here's one, you can see, follow it this way, all the way back to these fissures. The vertical fissures were connected into these veins. Branches out and disappears toward the foundation and the core of the structure. And I just showed in episode 132 that we found these iron ore mineral deposits inside the core of the central pyramid. And as we get a little closer here, you can see the red color here. And here are paving stones. So here are paving blocks. This is paving block. Paving blocks and stones here. This is the delineation of where the paving blocks meet the bedrock. And you can see these pristine paving blocks here. This is all limestone paving blocks. You can see the polygonal stones. And then we walk over here to where we hit bedrock. And this is another area with this blackened material here. This area in particular, it looks like there was melted iron just flowing down through these cracks. There was high voltage electric current flowing through these veins. Here's another area with this really black material in through here, and the paving paving stones, bedrock.
In situ red granite casing?
Yep. I don't know if you could hear that. She just said that these are in situ, original red granite casing stones.
Yeah, that flaking phenomenon you're talking about.
Yep. So as you remember when we discussed the West Kennett Avenue stone analysis, that a lot of the surface of those stones displayed peeling or flaking, which is what you can see here. Which was explained by our lead geologist colleague at the Osireion project as high temperature heating from the inside that causes flaking like this on the surface. And we see this in the Valley Temple. We see it at Abu Sir and so many other structures across Egypt, indication of internal high temperature heating that causes this flaking. So we just walked up all this area here, back around, and then down in through here, and I showed all of the veins branching across this area, all into the core of the central pyramid. All right, and just here's another area going underneath this little entrance platform. We're directly in front of the opening into the reaction chamber system here. See another blackened piece right here, and there's a big vein that runs underneath this area. You can see the crack. So let me refrain from calling these cracks. They're not cracks, they're veins. This whole thing was filled with material. You can see some of it here. Hopefully it's jumping out at you now. Anytime you see these blackened pieces, that's that iron oxide metal. And this entire platform is constructed over a huge section of the vein. When you could again see, this isn't a crack. There's material down in here. All right, almost done with the first cigar for this afternoon. Really nice cedar notes. And this one's been sitting in my humidor for, I don't know, about 2 months. Yeah, just a great cedar flavor. Another one of my favorite notes in warped cigars. I'll be smoking this one down to the nub again today. All right. Here we are back at that same blackened area where we started. I'm sure you can see what has caught my attention here. So here you can see a lot of blackened ore material. So this piece here, I don't think this is bedrock. Looks to be a limestone, a huge limestone block. It's very, very unusual. Looks like there's a piece of metal fused down in that thing. All right, so now we're rounding the northeastern corner. And on this side, we're back on paving stones. This isn't bedrock here, this is all paving. Yeah, so it looks like, now I can see the whole scope. There are huge blocks in this area that are integrated with the bedrock. So these are blocks of limestone in through here. And this is all limestone paving blocks in through this area as well. So next, I'm going to show you the vein that leads into the Eastern Temple. So here's another big deposit. And we have some blocks here integrated with bedrock here. And there's a big red piece right here. And more of these branch-like veins in the bedrock. That vein here heading out toward the central temple. And we're going to take a walk through here so I can show you that that vein does indeed continue into the temple itself. All right, so now I'm within the threshold of the Eastern Temple. There's a chunk of that iron and metal ore. You see it all throughout the temple here. There's a big part here. So limestone block, and this piece right here that's all iron oxide. See more of that melted looking material here. There's a nice piece here. So this vein from the core of the central pyramid running through the Eastern Temple. And here the vein continues. This is more of the vein here. Look at all this material here. All of this red black material in through here. Which brings us to a very unusual area of this temple. The blocks of calcite. Huge block of calcite crystal here. Huge block of calcite crystal here. Here's our vein of electrically conductive metal ore. There's more of this ore here. This pit here may have been filled with that material. Look what we have here. Boom. Our granite conduit. More of this oxide material here. As presented in many previous episodes, episodes. Leading down into this ore pit here. It's okay. And you guys have seen me down in this pit in previous Sunday site visits. Just look at the size of these veins running through this area. All of this entire area is a huge field of iron oxide. So here we have a differentiation into different parts of the system. Look how red that is. And I mean, just looking at this surface here, it's like there's flecks of gold in there that you can almost see. Look at the color. Beautiful piece right here. So this whole area is filled with ore material, and we have samples from this area. There is a shaft that leads under the paving in this direction. You can see the concrete fill-in here covering up that opening. That's a huge piece of this material here. And I want to show this one more time. So I've been down in this pit before, but I wanted to show you this huge. Look at this. Look at this huge tubular iron vein. All of this is that metal mineral ore. And there is some severe erosion leading down in through here. Look at how rounded out all of this is in here. So as I just said, here's a continuation of the other side of the vein here. This is crazy looking here. So as I mentioned, now we're looking at two different components of the system here. Yeah. And
This is my home.
so here, under this pile of rock,
No, this I am.
this hole,
Ah.
hey now, there's an injection port.
No, this I am.
A hole.
I am.
Yeah.
Yes,
This hole, hey now.
yes.
And the hole here that they've covered up with rocks leads down into this pit. And I'll be honest with you, man, my mind is racing right now. I'm trying to put into words what I'm thinking and feeling right now. The scope of this operation is staggering. What they were doing here, it's almost incomprehensible, the complexity of this operation. And the simple fact that I'm just walking around on top of this ancient chemical engineering and electrical current distribution network and system is just, man, you got to see it for yourself. So come, November tour. Here's more of this just blackened, roasted material in through here. Here's more of the conduit. More of the vein here. So you can see here, this looks like melted metal. Channel, the conduit. They've removed pieces of this, and there's a piece over there that I just showed, and another piece down here of that same conduit. And then here we're going to follow more veins. Okay, so here you can see all this reddish material, these veins. Running down in this direction. This whole thing here is a vein of iron. Leading down into yet another pit. Hiwa. And there's more of this black roasted material leading down into here. I've been in here before, but the guards are watching us pretty closely right now. Look at this piece. And then again from the pit here in this direction, I mean, you could just see the huge pieces of the vein here. This entire area moving down in this direction is all a huge iron deposit. All of this material here. You can see the pieces of the vein here. This entire section, look at how red all this is. It's over here, here, moving down the plateau. All of this material. This is all iron, 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 iron. More of it here. Huge pieces of this vein. Look at this. More of it here, branching down in this direction, down the causeway. So the map of these electrically conductive metal ore mineral veins that I presented at the beginning of the episode, every single one of the connections that I have proposed on that map, I have now presented physical evidence. From the core into the central pyramid, from the core into the pits, from the core down the plateau into the causeway. And it's time for the plateau to close once again. We've closed down closing the park. So we're gonna walk down the plateau, down the causeway, and I'll point out more pieces of this vein in the bedrock of the causeway as we head down toward the Valley Temple and the Sphinx. Absolutely staggering. All right. Here's another piece of that conduit, the red granite conduit. So there's a piece here, there's a piece up there that was connected into the component inside of the central pyramid eastern temple. And so now we're gonna head down the causeway toward the exit. And you can see more of this iron. Again, it runs through this entire area. down through here. This is the bedrock foundation of the causeway down to the Valley Temple. And I'll just point out as I walk along, there's more here. And once you know what you're looking for, it would be more unusual to not see it. There's more. This is a huge piece right here. This here. Here. All this whole, look at this. This whole area here. Distributing that high voltage electric current. Aywa, Sadiki, Aywa. And man, there are days and weeks and months of endless expeditions that could be done up here. Okay, so now we're going to pick up another piece of it here. Vein running through here. More branches of it here. There's another piece here. And you can see out in front of me, more of the vein here. This is the vein here. Hopefully you'll start to pick it up without me having to point at it. All of this is all iron. Here's a piece here. Look at this. Again, this just looks like a stream of melted iron metal. And I keep saying iron, but you know there's a vast array of other metals in this. And God only knows what is actually underneath all of this, right? Moving down in this direction. So I've also talked about the vein that connects into the Osiris shaft over here. My beautiful partner.
That was fun.
And the opening to the Osiris shaft is down over here in this area. So now we're on paving. This is paving here. Limestone blocks on this section. And this is the opening into the Osiris shaft here. These are paving blocks here. And here's another piece of some iron material here. There's a chunk over there. So now we're walking on, again, limestone blocks that are covering up the bedrock. صديقي ازيك؟ All right, here's a section of bedrock, and what do we see? Veins run through all of this bedrock. This is bedrock here. This is bedrock, and then we have some paving stones over here. All these veins. This is all pieces of the same huge deposit. At the tail end of the bedrock, what do we have? And here's a piece where you can see more of this blackened. So this is actually another example of where they're using the ancient channel. There's a modern wire in here. Here's a big piece right here. Pretty speechless. There's no way to put it into words. And it has now taken me 132 research episodes and 66 site visits to communicate the full scope of operation that was occurring here in Egypt. Lightning-powered chemical engineering and high voltage electric current distribution, an integration of man-made machines and naturally occurring bedrock formations. I've said this since day one. The Egyptian pyramids were designed to operate in conjunctions with the forces of nature to accomplish miraculous transformations. I can't say it any better than that.
All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. This was Sunday Site Visit 117, the Giza iron veins
Ancient Egypt documentary. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. And if this is the type of content you're interested in, please remember to subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification bell so you don't miss out on new videos. Remember to like, comment, share, and stay tuned if you want to help support the channel and get access to exclusive research content. Check out the Land of Chem members only channel and thelandofchem.com if you want to pick up a copy of the book or grab some merch. Links in the video description below. If you want to follow me on Instagram or on X, my handle is @thelandofchem. Also, don't forget, after you finish watching this video, please go subscribe to our 3 other channels. My wife Alexa's channel, Archeo Alchemy, Let's Go with Lex and G, and the best channel on YouTube, Egyptian Trash Cats. For all you cat lovers out there, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. I think that is it for today's video. So I will see you next time. Yo, are you still watching this? Please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button. New videos coming out every single week. And check out this other episode. Come on, do it. Do it now.